Peter was about to head out to meet Quagmire for their usual silly shenanigans when Lois intercepted him, holding a list of errands she needed him to help with. Frustrated, Peter grabbed the vacuum cleaner and stabbed it repeatedly, venting his irritation. Lois handed him another task, watching Stewie, who was already fixated on his favorite show, Jolly Farm *. Reluctantly, Peter sat down to watch, but soon enough, he was just as captivated by the show as Stewie. In no time, he was mirroring the exercise routines of the character, Mother Maggie, and tossing around homemade confetti, clearly smitten by the charming character. Meanwhile, at school, Meg was dissecting a pig in her biology class. Impressed by her steady hands and focus, her teacher suggested that she might have a future as a doctor. He informed her about a program that allowed students to shadow a real doctor to learn more about the medical profession. Meg was thrilled and could hardly wait to sign up. Back at the Griffin house, Peter was glued to Jolly Farm * for 3 hours straight. He was so engrossed in the show that he didn't even notice Stewie slipping out and placing a pineapple in his place. When Lois discovered the fruit where Stewie should have been, she panicked, but Peter reassured her that a little independence was good for Stewie. When Stewie eventually returned, Lois continued scolding Peter for being careless. Peter, annoyed by Lois's nagging, wondered aloud why Lois couldn't be sweet and nurturing like Mother Maggie from the show. One day, Lois came home from her yoga class to find the kids waiting hungrily at the dinner table. She was frustrated to learn that Peter hadn't put the lasagna in the oven as she'd asked. When they went looking for him, they discovered he had started his own show, Petey's Funhouse, on a local TV station. Lois was skeptical, but Brian explained that local TV allowed almost anyone to have a show. She was disappointed in Peter for wasting his time on this latest obsession. While Peter was busy with his show, Meg was starting her shadowing program with Dr. Hartman at the hospital. Dr. Hartman gave her a tour, introducing her to the various departments and showing her the inner workings of the medical world. Meg was elated to experience real-life medical procedures, feeling more excited about her future in medicine. On Petey's Funhouse *, Peter entertained with sing-alongs, cheesy stories, and moral lessons, finding joy in being a goofy host. The show took up most of his time, much to Lois's annoyance, as Peter became unavailable for daily chores. She eventually confronted him, frustrated by how distracted he'd become, but Peter, tired of her constant complaints, snapped back. In his show, he even created a puppet character called Saggy Naggy, a ventriloquist doll that parodied Lois's nagging nature. Saggy Naggy constantly criticized everything, much to Peter's delight and the audience's amusement. Meanwhile, Dr. Hartman faced an emergency and had to step away, asking Meg to cover for him temporarily. Excited by the responsibility, she eagerly stepped in. While shopping, Lois found herself being taunted by some kids who recognized her from Peter's show as Saggy Naggy. They mocked her with the puppet's catchphrases and even poked fun by hitting her, leaving her humiliated. Furious, she confronted Peter and declared that she wouldn't be nagging him anymore, deciding to let him handle his own responsibilities. As Meg continued her shadowing experience, a senior doctor approached her, suggesting that she didn't belong in a professional medical setting. His condescending tone stung, but Meg tried to hold her head high, despite feeling deeply hurt. Back on Petey's Funhouse *, things took an unexpected turn when Peter brought a ferocious puma onto the show. Lois, watching from home, couldn't help but feel protective and immediately rushed to the studio to check on him. Her fears were realized when the puma attacked Peter, leaving him severely injured. He was bleeding heavily from a torn jugular vein when Meg, who had arrived at the studio by then, jumped in to give him first aid. Her shadowing experience proved invaluable as she managed to stitch his vein and control the bleeding until paramedics arrived to take him to the hospital. Later, when Peter regained consciousness, he apologized to Lois, admitting he had been careless and that she was only looking out for him. Touched by his acknowledgement, Lois assured him that she would always love him and be there to support him. As for Meg, her life-saving efforts went unnoticed by everyone, as usual, leaving her feeling unappreciated despite her good deed.